Hey everyone, before we dive into one of the most disturbing, heartbreaking, and ultimately redemptive true stories you will ever hear, a story about a young girl trapped in a nightmare, a doctor who refused to look away, and a secret that was hidden for years just 3 houses down from a quiet suburban street. Please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Trust me, you will not want to miss a single detail of this incredible story. Your support helps us keep telling stories that matter. Now, let's begin, and I promise you will not look away until the very end. The early evening air settled over Santa Rosa, a modest city nestled in Sonoma County, California. The sun had already dipped below the horizon, leaving behind a sky painted in shades of deep orange and purple. Streetlights flickered to life one by one, casting long shadows on the quiet suburban streets. Dr. Evan Lom, a 52-year-old family physician, glanced at his watch as he hurried out of the examination room. His independent clinic, which he had opened just a few years ago after decades of working in large hospitals, was steadily building a patient base in this close-knit neighborhood. He was known as a caring, thorough doctor, someone who took the time to listen, someone who trusted his instincts. And tonight, those instincts would be tested like never before. "Rosa," Dr. Lom called, approaching the nurse station. He handed a prescription eyeglass case to the nurse on duty. "This was left behind by Mrs. Hernandez. Please make sure she gets it back." Rosa, a seasoned nurse in her late 40s with sharp eyes and an even sharper intuition, took the case and placed it in the desk drawer. "I'll call her right away," she replied. As Dr. Lom turned to head back to his examination room, he scanned the waiting area. It was mostly empty now as closing time approached. The chairs were arranged in neat rows, the magazines on the side table neatly stacked. But in the corner, near the window, sat a pair that he hadn't noticed earlier. A stocky man in a blue polo shirt sat stiffly, his hands resting on his knees. Next to him was a young girl in a red hoodie, her head bowed, her shoulders hunched as if she were trying to make herself as small as possible. Recognition flashed across Dr. Lom's face. He had seen that man before many times, actually. "Marco," Dr. Lom called out, walking over with a warm, professional smile. "Marco Alcone, right? I didn't know you were coming in today." Marco rose to his feet, extending a firm hand. "Dr. Lom, good to see you." Dr. Lom shook his hand and replied, "We're neighbors, Marco. You can call me Evan outside the clinic. No need for formalities here." He then turned his attention to the girl, who kept her eyes fixed on the floor as if it held the secrets of the universe. "And this must be Lucia. I don't think we've properly met before, though I've seen you around the neighborhood, riding your bike, walking to the mailbox. You've grown a lot since the last time I saw you." Lucia barely acknowledged him with a slight nod, never lifting her gaze. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, knuckles white. Dr. Lom noticed a faint tremor in her fingers. "We'll be with you shortly," Dr. Lom assured them. "Just finishing up some paperwork. Rosa will call you when we're ready." He returned to his examination room, settled behind his desk, and began organizing the charts from his previous patients. The room smelled of antiseptic and paper. The soft hum of the fluorescent lights was the only sound. A moment later, Rosa entered the room. She began methodically sanitizing the examination table and equipment, preparing for the next patient. Her movements were efficient, but her expression was troubled. "Dr. Lom," she said in a lowered voice, "there's something strange about that father and daughter out there." Dr. Lom looked up from his paperwork, his pen pausing mid-sentence. "What do you mean?" Rosa's brow furrowed as she wiped down the ultrasound machine with a practiced hand. "When I took the girl's vitals, temperature, blood pressure, pulse, her father wouldn't let her speak, not even to give her own name. He kept answering everything for me." "What's your daughter's date of birth?" I asked. He answered. "Any known allergies?" He answered. "Is she taking any medications?" He answered. I had to keep reminding him that I needed to hear from her directly. It was like she wasn't even in the room. She shook her head slowly. "And the girl, Lucia, she won't make eye contact. Not once. Not with me, not with you, not with anyone. She just stared at the floor the whole time. Her hands were shaking." Dr. Lom leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. "I know them, Rosa. They live just 3 houses down from me. Marco can be a bit authoritative. Some fathers are like that. It might just be his personality. Rosa's eyes narrowed. I'm Mexican too, Dr. Lam. I know what authoritative fathers look like. I grew up with one. But this isn't cultural. This isn't strict parenting. This is something else. She paused, then handed him the girl's chart. Read the symptoms she's been experiencing. Dr. Lam took the chart and scanned the list. His eyes widened. 14 years old with pregnancy symptoms, he murmured almost to himself. Nausea, fatigue, abdominal pain, missed periods. The signs were unmistakable.
Rosa nodded grimly.
That's why I'm concerned. A 14-year-old girl, brought in by her father with pregnancy symptoms, and she won't say a word. Something isn't right. Dr. Lam straightened his white coat, took a deep breath, and composed his expression. Send them in, he said. Rosa opened the door and called out to the waiting area. Moments later, Marco guided Lucia into the room with a firm hand on her shoulder. His grip was not gentle, it was possessive, almost controlling. The girl moved as if she were walking on eggshells, her body tense, her red hoodie hanging loosely over her small frame. She kept her eyes on the floor, her feet shuffling forward in tiny, hesitant steps. Dr. Lam noticed that she was wearing old sneakers with frayed laces. Her hoodie was several sizes too large, as if she were trying to hide inside it. Thank you for seeing us, doctor, Marco said, taking the chair beside the examination table. Especially this late. We appreciate it. Of course, Dr. Lam replied, keeping his voice calm and welcoming. What seems to be the problem? Marco cleared his throat, shifting uncomfortably in his chair. It's not easy to say this, but my daughter is pregnant. Despite having seen the symptoms on the chart, hearing it stated so bluntly made Dr. Lam's stomach tighten. He looked at Lucia, who remained silent, staring at her hands folded in her lap. Her fingers were intertwined, and she was picking at a hangnail. I see, Dr. Lam said carefully. He turned his attention to Lucia. Lucia, how have you been feeling? Before she could open her mouth, Marco interjected. She's been having morning sickness, fatigue, and lately she's been complaining about abdominal pain. It started about 2 weeks ago, getting worse every day. Dr. Lam kept his focus on Lucia, his voice soft. Lucia, would you prefer to answer these questions yourself? You can tell me in your own words. The girl gave a barely perceptible nod, but she didn't speak. Her lips pressed together as if she were fighting back tears. Dr. Lam decided to try a different approach. He sat on the rolling stool and positioned himself at eye level with Lucia, trying to create a less intimidating atmosphere. Lucia, I know this is hard, but I'm here to help you, not to judge you. Can you tell me how many weeks along you think you are? Again, before Lucia could answer, Marco spoke. She doesn't know. She's been hiding it from me. She has a boyfriend, some boy from school, I think. We don't want to talk about him. His tone made it clear that the subject was closed. Dr. Lam noticed that Marco's eyes were cold, almost dead. There was no warmth there, no concern, just a flat, calculating gaze. Mr. Alcone, Dr. Lam said, turning to face him. I need to ask you a few questions. Has Lucia seen an obstetrician before today? Marco shook his head.
No.
This is our first doctor visit. I didn't know until last week. She finally told me. Dr. Lam frowned. She's approximately 28 weeks pregnant, based on her symptoms and abdominal size. That's well into the 3rd trimester. She should have been receiving prenatal care for months.
Marco shrugged.
She hid it well. Wore baggy clothes. I work long hours. I didn't notice. The explanation was thin, but Dr. Lam let it pass for now. He stood up and gestured to the examination table. I'd like to perform an ultrasound to check on the baby and determine exactly how far along you are, Lucia. Is that okay with you? Lucia nodded, still not meeting his eyes. Rosa gently helped Lucia onto the examination table. The girl winced as she lay back, a small gasp escaping her lips. Does that hurt? Rosa asked softly. Lucia nodded, her face pale. The abdominal pain has been getting worse, Marco explained from his chair, crossing his arms over his chest. Dr. Lam applied the cool gel to Lucia's abdomen, noting how she flinched at his touch. Her skin was cold and clammy. He moved the transducer across her belly, watching the screen intently. The black and white image showed the outline of a fetus, arms, legs, a tiny heart beating rapidly. But something was wrong. The size didn't match the gestational age he had guessed. He adjusted the machine for a better view. "Lucia, you appear to be approximately 28 weeks pregnant," he said. Marco's eyes widened. "That can't be right. It hasn't been that long." Dr. Lam looked at him sharply. "What do you mean, it hasn't been that long?" Marco stammered. "I mean, she only told me last week. I assumed it was early, maybe 12 or 14 weeks." Dr. Lam continued examining the ultrasound image. "It's a girl," he said, then frowned deeply. "But I'm seeing some very concerning signs. Her abdomen doesn't match typical growth patterns for 28 weeks. The baby is measuring small, significantly small. This suggests what we call intrauterine growth restriction, or IUGR. It means the baby isn't growing at a normal rate. This can happen due to problems with the placenta, maternal health issues, or fetal conditions." He moved the transducer again, his eyes fixed on the screen. "I'm also detecting an irregular fetal heartbeat. The rhythm is off, not consistently steady. That's another red flag." He turned to face Marco directly, his expression serious. "Mr. Alcone, I strongly recommend that you take Lucia to the hospital immediately. She needs specialized care that I can't provide here in my clinic. Doppler studies to assess blood flow to the baby, detailed fetal echocardiography to evaluate the heart, and potentially interventions to help the baby grow. This is urgent." Marco's face darkened. "The hospital? Why can't you just give her some medicine? Prenatal vitamins or something?" Dr. Lam explained patiently. "This requires advanced monitoring and possibly intervention. The hospital has the equipment and specialists needed to monitor the baby's development properly. They can perform tests that I can't do here. If the growth restriction is severe, they might need to deliver the baby early. Every day that passes without proper care increases the risk of complications for both Lucia and the baby." Marco looked resistant, his jaw set. "She's fine. She's been fine for 28 weeks. One more night won't make a difference." Dr. Lam's voice grew firmer. "Actually, it could. Intrauterine growth restriction and fetal arrhythmia can deteriorate rapidly. I'm giving you a prescription for prenatal vitamins, calcium and folic acid, but that's not enough. She needs to be seen at the hospital tonight." He wrote out the prescription on a small pad and handed it to Marco. "The pharmacy next door is still open. You can fill this while Nurse Rosa helps clean up Lucia. I'll print out the ultrasound images for you to take with you." Marco glanced hesitantly between the doctor and his daughter. Dr. Lam assured him, "She'll be fine. We'll just clean off the gel and print the images. She'll join you at the pharmacy in a few minutes." Marco reluctantly took the prescription, gave Lucia one last look, and left the room. The door clicked shut behind him. As soon as he was gone, Rosa began gently wiping the gel from Lucia's abdomen. "You're going to be okay, sweetie," she said softly, her voice full of compassion. And then it happened. Lucia's eyes suddenly welled with tears. Not just a few tears, but a flood. Her whole body began to tremble. She whispered, her voice barely audible. "She kicks when she hears his voice. I hate that she likes him." Dr. Lam and Rosa exchanged alarmed glances. The statement hung in the air, heavy with meaning that neither of them fully understood yet, but both felt in their bones. "Lucia," Dr. Lam said carefully, his heart beginning to race. "What do you mean by that? Who kicks? Who likes who?" But Lucia had retreated back into silence. Her momentary openness had vanished like a door slamming shut. She pressed her lips together and stared at the ceiling, tears streaming down her cheeks. Dr. Lam tried to make sense of her words. Perhaps she was upset about the pregnancy and projecting those feelings onto her father. Maybe Marco had been angry when he found out, and she was expressing resentment. But something about the way she said it, "She kicks when she hears his voice," sent a chill down his spine. He pushed the thought away, not ready to confront what it might really mean. "What's done is done," he said gently, trying to comfort her. "Your father brought you here because he cares about your health. Now we need to focus on making sure you and the baby are okay. That's why it's so important that you go to the hospital right away." He handed Lucia the printed ultrasound image, and she took it, her gaze fixed on the black and white picture of her unborn daughter. To her eyes, it probably looked like an abstract blur. But Dr. Lam could see that she was holding it with both hands, as if protecting it. Through the glass panel in the door, Dr. Lam could see Marco returning from the pharmacy, a small paper bag in his hand. The moment of trust, the brief window of honesty, was lost. Rosa helped Lucia sit up, and they prepared to leave. Dr. Lam watched as Marco collected his daughter, his hand once again firmly on her shoulder, and they exited the clinic. The door swung shut, and the waiting area fell silent. After Marco and Lucia left, Rosa returned to the examination room, her face troubled. She gathered the remaining ultrasound printouts, her movements slow and thoughtful. 9 o'clock, she announced, looking at her watch. That's it for today, right? Dr. Lam nodded, still disturbed by Lucia's cryptic statement. Yes, they were our last patients. Rosa began shutting down the ultrasound machine, her expression pensive. That was strange, don't you think? The girl hiding her pregnancy for 28 weeks. And what she said when her father left the room. Dr. Lam leaned against his desk, running a hand through his hair. I know. It was definitely unusual. Rosa pressed. What do you think she meant? About the baby kicking when she hears his voice? And her saying she hates that the baby likes him? Dr. Lam tried to rationalize it. I'm assuming she must have hidden the pregnancy from her father all this time. That's why he only just brought her in. Maybe he was angry when he found out, yelling, accusing her, and that's why she's expressing those feelings. It's a stressful situation for any teenager, let alone one who's pregnant. Rosa wasn't convinced, but she specifically said the baby kicks when she hears her father's voice, not when she hears a stranger's voice, not when she hears a teacher's voice, when she hears his voice. And she doesn't like that the baby likes him. Doesn't that seem odd to you? Dr. Lam shrugged, though his own doubts were growing. It could be teenage hormones colliding with pregnancy hormones. Mood swings and emotional volatility are common in both. Rosa nodded slowly, but doubt lingered in her eyes. I hope they go to the hospital like you told them to. Me too, Dr. Lam said. That baby needs proper monitoring. They finished closing the clinic, turning off lights, locking cabinets, and securing the building. The other staff had already departed, leaving just the two of them to lock up. They walked out together into the cool night air, the parking lot nearly empty except for their cars. Have a good night, doctor, Rosa said, heading toward her car. You too, Rosa. See you tomorrow. Dr. Lam climbed into his sedan, the engine humming to life as he pulled out of the parking lot. His mind kept replaying the examination, the way Marco controlled the conversation, the way Lucia avoided eye contact, the strange comment about the baby kicking. Something felt off, but he couldn't quite place it. He drove through the quiet streets, past darkened houses and closed shops, until he turned into his neighborhood. The street lights cast long shadows on the pavement. He slowed as he approached the Alcone residence, 3 houses away from his own. Their car was parked in the driveway. The house was dark except for a faint glow from a back window. They didn't go to the hospital, he muttered to himself, a flicker of concern igniting in his chest. He continued driving to his house, pulled into his driveway, and shut off the engine. Sitting in the darkness of his car, he debated with himself. Maybe they didn't understand the seriousness of the situation. The irregular heartbeat, the growth restriction, these weren't minor issues, especially for a 14-year-old mother. Perhaps Marco had decided to wait until morning. Or perhaps he had taken her to a different hospital, one further away. Dr. Lam told himself he should just go inside, have dinner, and call it a night. It wasn't his responsibility to chase down patients who ignored his medical advice. But Lucia's words echoed in his mind, over and over. She kicks when she hears his voice. I hate that she likes him. With a heavy sigh, Dr. Lam got out of his car and walked back down the street to the Alcone house. The lights were on inside now, a warm, yellow glow emanating from the living room window. He hesitated, then knocked firmly on the front door. After a long moment, the door swung open, and Marco stood there, surprise flashing across his face before he quickly composed himself into a neutral expression. Dr. Lam, is everything okay? I was just checking in, Dr. Lam said, trying to keep his tone casual. I noticed your car was here, and I was concerned since I had recommended you take Lucia to the hospital right away." Marco's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. A tightening of the jaw, a narrowing of the eyes. "Ah yes, thank you for your concern. Lucia has gone to the hospital with her mother. I stayed behind to finish some work." Dr. Lam blinked, caught off guard. This was the first mention of Lucia's mother being in the picture. He had assumed Marco was a single father. "I see," he said carefully. "That's good to hear. I was worried about the baby's condition." "Yes, well, she's in good hands now," Marco said, his tone clipped. "Thank you for stopping by, doctor. But it's getting late, and I have work to finish." "Of course," Dr. Lam nodded. "Sorry to disturb you. Good night, Mr. Alcone." "Good night." The door shut firmly behind him, leaving Dr. Lam standing on the porch with an annoying unease in his gut. As he made his way back home, Marco's explanation played over and over in his mind. He could only hope it had been the truth. Inside his kitchen, Dr. Lam opened the refrigerator and stared at its contents. His appetite had been diminished by the nagging sense that something was wrong. He grabbed leftovers from the previous night's dinner chicken pasta and placed it in the microwave. As he waited for his food to heat, Rosa's concerns echoed in his mind. The way Marco had controlled the conversation, answering questions meant for Lucia. The girl's reluctance to make eye contact. Her cryptic comment about the baby. And now Marco's claim that Lucia had gone to the hospital with her mother. The microwave beeped, but Dr. Lam barely noticed. A realization struck him. Despite living just 3 houses away from the Alcone family for over a year, he had rarely seen Lucia or her mother outside. He knew Marco had a daughter, but their interactions had been limited to the occasional wave from the driveway or brief exchanges at neighborhood gatherings. And those exchanges were always with Marco alone. He never saw Lucia playing in the yard. He never saw her walking to school. As for Marco's wife, he couldn't even recall the last time he'd seen her. Maybe they were divorced, he thought. That would explain the absence. But then why would Marco say Lucia went to the hospital with her mother? If the mother had custody or visitation, why wasn't she at the clinic? He took his plate to his home office, a small room with a desk, computer, and bookshelves lined with medical texts. Setting his dinner aside, he opened his laptop and navigated to Facebook. "This probably crosses some professional boundaries," he muttered to himself. "But something isn't right. I need to know more." He searched for Marco Alcone and quickly found his profile. Marco's privacy settings were minimal, likely because he wasn't very tech-savvy, allowing Dr. Lam to browse through his photos and information. He scrolled through the friend list, searching for someone who might be Lucia's mother. A name caught his eye: Daniela Rivera. The name rang faintly familiar, as if he'd heard it long ago in passing. He clicked on her profile. Her profile picture showed a woman with kind eyes and dark hair, and there was something about her face that tugged at his memory. She bore a subtle resemblance to Lucia, the same shape of the eyes, the same curve of the jaw. He was almost certain he had seen her before somewhere in the past. He scrolled through her timeline, looking for family photos. There were pictures of Daniela at work events with friends at what looked like birthday parties. But there were no recent photos with Marco or Lucia. In fact, scrolling back through several years, he saw a distinct absence of family photos. The last picture of Daniela with Lucia appeared to be from when Lucia was about 7 years old. A little girl with pigtails hugging her mother. After that, nothing. If they're divorced, that would make sense, he mused aloud. But then why would Marco say Lucia went to the hospital with her? Shared custody? Emergency visitation? Dr. Lam knew he was stepping outside professional boundaries by investigating his patient's family this way. But Lucia's well-being, and potentially her safety, overrode his hesitation. He clicked on the messenger icon and began typing a message to Daniela. "Hello, Ms. Rivera. I apologize for contacting you this way, but I'm Dr. Evan Lam, a family physician who saw your daughter Lucia today. I just wanted to check how the hospital visit is going. Again, sorry for the intrusion." He hesitated before hitting send, aware that this message might anger her or cause confusion. But concern for Lucia won out. He pressed send. Dr. Lam ate his dinner while occasionally glancing at the screen for a response. None came. He cleaned his plate, changed into more comfortable clothes, and prepared for bed, checking his phone one last time before turning in. As he lay in bed, Staring at the ceiling, his phone chimed with a notification. He grabbed it quickly, seeing a message from Daniela Rivera. What hospital visit? Is something wrong with Lucia? Before he could type a response, his phone began ringing, a Facebook call from Daniela. He sat up in bed and answered. Hello, Dr. Lam speaking. Doctor, what's going on? Daniela's voice was tense with worry. What do you mean about a hospital visit? I'm not at any hospital with Lucia. Dr. Lam's stomach sank. Ms. Rivera, I saw your daughter at my clinic this evening. She was brought in by her father, Marco. She's pregnant, approximately 28 weeks along. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. That's impossible, Daniela whispered. I haven't seen Lucia in almost 3 years. Marco and I have been divorced for 10 years. He has full custody, and I'm not allowed near her. There's a restraining order. He claimed I was unstable, a bad influence. Her voice cracked. Oh my God, my baby. She's only 14. How could this happen? Who did this to her? Dr. Lam closed his eyes, pieces beginning to fall into place like a terrible puzzle. Ms. Rivera, I need to explain the situation clearly. Lucia came to my clinic with Marco this evening. She's in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy with intrauterine growth restriction, which means the fetus isn't growing at a normal rate. This can happen due to problems with the placenta, maternal health issues, or fetal conditions. He paused to take a breath, his own heart racing. I also detected an irregular fetal heartbeat. I advised them to go to the hospital immediately so specialists could perform Doppler studies and assess the baby's development. If there's organ underdevelopment, especially in the lungs and brain, there are treatments that could help before it's too late. Daniela was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was raw. Marco said she has a boyfriend? Dr. Lam hesitated. That's what he told me, but I'm now questioning everything he said. There was something off about the whole visit. The way he controlled her. The way she wouldn't speak. A strange comment she made about the baby kicking when she hears her father's voice. Daniela let out a choked sob. Oh God. Oh no. Doctor, please, you have to help her. You have to get her away from him. I don't know what he's done, but I know he's capable of things. Please call the police. I don't care if they arrest me for violating the restraining order. This is my daughter. Dr. Lam's mind raced. I understand, Ms. Rivera, but we need to be careful. Lucia is in a delicate condition, and we don't want to trigger premature labor by causing her additional stress. Let me check on her again. I'll go back to the house, and I'll keep you updated. For now, it's probably best if you stay where you are. If the police need to get involved, we'll coordinate. After ending the call, Dr. Lam accessed his clinic's electronic medical records from his laptop. He pulled up the ultrasound images from Lucia's examination, studying them carefully. The images confirmed his initial assessment, restricted growth, potentially compromised placental function, concerning indications of decreased blood flow to the fetus. This meant less oxygen and fewer nutrients were reaching the baby, a situation that could rapidly deteriorate. The clock on his bedside table read 10:15 p.m. It was late for house calls, but Marco had clearly lied to him, and his daughter needed medical attention. Dr. Lam decided this couldn't wait until morning. By then, Marco might be at work or come up with another excuse. He quickly changed back into street clothes, jeans, a dark sweater, comfortable shoes, and headed out of his house. The night had grown cooler, a light fog beginning to settle over the suburban neighborhood. The streetlights glowed through the mist, casting an eerie halo on the pavement. The Alcone house stood silhouetted against the night sky, its windows still illuminated. He approached the front door with determination, rehearsing in his mind what he would say to Marco when he answered. He knocked firmly 3 sharp raps. The sound echoed in the quiet night. He waited. No answer. He knocked again, louder this time. Mr. Alcone? It's Dr. Lam. I need to speak with you. The door creaked open, but it wasn't Marco who stood in the doorway. It was Lucia. Her eyes widened slightly at the sight of him, a flicker of hope and fear crossing her pale face. Dr. Lam, she whispered, glancing nervously over her shoulder. Lucia, he said gently, keeping his voice low. Did you go to the hospital? She shook her head, her fingers fidgeting with the hem of her hoodie. Lucia, I need you to tell me the truth, Dr. Lam said. What's happening here? Why did you hide your pregnancy for so long? Lucia opened her mouth to speak, but before she could say anything, Marco's voice boomed from inside the house. "Who is it, Lucia? Is that the delivery guy? What's taking so long?" Fear flashed across Lucia's face, raw, primal fear. "Please go," she whispered, already starting to close the door. "Please." Dr. Lam put his hand on the door to stop it from closing completely. "Lucia, I can help you. Let me help you." "I can't," she breathed, her eyes filling with tears. "He'll hurt me. He'll hurt the baby." And she pushed the door shut. Dr. Lam stood on the porch, his hands still raised, his heart pounding. Technically, he had done his duty. He'd informed Marco of the risks and urged him to seek hospital care. He couldn't force them to follow his advice. But something about that house felt off, deeply, profoundly wrong, and he couldn't bring himself to walk away. He had made a promise to Daniela, and that promise still held weight. He had also made a silent promise to himself years ago when he first became a doctor, to protect the vulnerable, to speak for those who couldn't speak for themselves. As he turned to leave, the front door swung open again. This time, Marco stood in the doorway, his expression dark with annoyance. "Dr. Lam," he said, voice tight, "why do you keep coming to my house? It's late in the evening. My daughter needs to rest." Dr. Lam stood his ground. "Mr. Alcone, I'm concerned about Lucia's condition. You told me she had gone to the hospital with her mother, but I've just learned that's not true. Her mother hasn't seen her in 3 years. There's a restraining order." Marco's jaw tightened, a muscle twitching in his cheek. "You've been checking up on me? Who I take my daughter to see is none of your business. As her physician, her health is my business," Dr. Lam countered, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "The baby's condition is serious. Delaying treatment could lead to complications, or worse." Marco glared at him, his fists clenching at his sides. He was about to respond when a light came on in the neighbor's house next door. A curtain twitched, someone was watching the late-night confrontation unfolding on the porch. Marco's demeanor shifted abruptly. His shoulders relaxed, and his voice became suddenly conciliatory. "Perhaps we should continue this conversation inside," he suggested, stepping back. "No need to disturb the whole neighborhood." Dr. Lam hesitated, a voice in his head telling him not to enter that house. But his concern for Lucia overruled his caution. He nodded and stepped inside. The living room was sparsely decorated, a worn beige couch, a cheap coffee table with water rings, a television mounted on the wall, and a few framed religious prints. The air smelled faintly of stale food and cigarette smoke. Lucia sat on the edge of the couch, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes fixed on the floor. She didn't look up when Dr. Lam entered. "Lucia," Dr. Lam said gently, "how are you feeling?" Marco interrupted before she could answer. "She's fine, just tired. Pregnant women get tired, right, doctor?" Dr. Lam turned to face Marco directly. "Mr. Alcone, you need to understand the seriousness of the situation. The ultrasound showed intrauterine growth restriction and an irregular fetal heartbeat. These conditions require immediate medical attention." "And she'll get that attention," Marco replied, his tone placating but his eyes cold. "First thing tomorrow morning, I promised." "Why wait?" Dr. Lam pressed. "Why not tonight?" "Because it's late," Marco said, gesturing at the clock on the wall. "Lucia needs rest. She's exhausted. And dragging her to an emergency room where we'll sit for hours isn't what she needs right now. The baby could be in distress," Dr. Lam argued. "Every hour counts in a situation like this." Marco's expression hardened. "The baby won't die overnight." Dr. Lam flinched at the callousness of the statement. Before he could respond, the doorbell rang. Marco's shoulders relaxed slightly. "That'll be the delivery. I ordered dinner for us." He turned to Lucia. "Wait here with the doctor. I'll get the food." As Marco walked to the door, Dr. Lam took the opportunity to move closer to Lucia, lowering his voice. "Are you okay? Is there something you want to tell me?" Lucia glanced toward the door, where Marco was paying the delivery person, digging for spare change in his pockets. Then, in a swift, almost invisible motion, she reached into her pocket and pulled out several folded photographs. She thrust them into Dr. Lam's hand just as Marco turned back toward them. Dr. Lam discreetly slipped the photos into his jacket pocket without looking at them. His heart was pounding so hard he was sure Marco could hear it. Lucia leaned closer and whispered, "There are more in the bedroom. I'll help you." Dr. Lam nodded almost imperceptibly and whispered back, "I'll help you. You're being very brave." Marco returned with a pizza box. "What are you two talking about?" he asked, his eyes darting between them. Dr. Lam improvised smoothly. "Lucia was telling me she's hungry, which is good. She needs proper nutrition. The baby needs it too." "See, I'm a good father," Marco said, placing the pizza on the coffee table. "I make sure she eats well." He turned to Dr. Lam, his demeanor shifting from defensive to dismissive. "Now, I appreciate your concern, doctor, but it's getting late. As you said yourself, pregnant women need rest. If she doesn't get proper sleep, that would be bad for the baby too, wouldn't it?" Dr. Lam recognized the dismissal. "Yes, rest is important," he conceded, "but so is medical care. And she'll get it first thing tomorrow morning," Marco insisted. "I promise." Seeing no way to push further without escalating the situation, Dr. Lam reluctantly headed toward the door. "I'll check in tomorrow to see how the hospital visit went," he said, a clear message that he wouldn't let this drop. "Of course," Marco replied, his smile not reaching his eyes. "Good night, doctor." As Dr. Lam left, he glanced back through the window and saw Marco and Lucia sitting at the table, the pizza box open between them. Marco was talking, his gestures animated, while Lucia sat motionless, her eyes downcast. She didn't touch the pizza. Once back in his house, Dr. Lam quickly pulled the photographs from his pocket. His hands were shaking. What he saw made his blood run cold. There were 4 photos, each showing Lucia in various stages of undress on what appeared to be a bed. A bed he recognized from the glimpses he'd seen through the window of the Alcone house. And in each photo, Marco was clearly visible. The photos documented abuse in graphic, undeniable detail. "My God," Dr. Lam whispered, his stomach churning. He quickly placed the photos face down on his desk, unable to look at them any longer. His mind was reeling. Lucia's words from the clinic echoed in his head with horrifying new meaning. "She kicks when she hears his voice. I hate that she likes him." The truth crashed down on him like a physical weight. Marco wasn't just Lucia's father. He was the father of her baby. There was no boyfriend. There was only a predator and his victim, living just 3 houses away from him, right under everyone's noses. Dr. Lam reached for his phone and dialed 911. His finger trembled as he pressed the numbers. "Emergency services," came the dispatcher's calm voice. "What's your emergency?" "I need to report child abuse and endangerment," Dr. Lam said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "A 14-year-old girl who is 28 weeks pregnant. The father is the abuser. She and her unborn child need immediate medical attention. I have photographic evidence. Please send officers to 237 Sycamore Drive, Santa Rosa." The suspect's name is Marco Alcone. While waiting for the police to arrive, Dr. Lam's mind raced. The photos in his possession were damning evidence, but he needed to ensure they reached the proper authorities. He also needed to alert Daniela to what was happening. He took photos of the printed photographs with his phone, making sure the images were clear enough to serve as evidence if the originals were somehow lost or destroyed. Then he sent them to Daniela through Facebook Messenger, along with a brief message explaining that he had contacted the police and they were on their way to Marco's house. His phone rang almost immediately, Daniela calling back. "I'm coming there right now," she said, her voice raw with emotion. "That monster. I'll kill him myself." "Daniela, please let the police handle this," Dr. Lam urged. "They're on their way. The most important thing right now is getting Lucia safely out of that house and to a hospital." "How could this happen?" Daniela sobbed. "How could he do this to his own daughter? I knew something was wrong when he fought so hard for custody, but I never thought he would." "I'm so sorry," Dr. Lam said, at a loss for more comforting words. "But Lucia reached out for help tonight. She was incredibly brave, and now we can get her away from him." "I'm still coming," Daniela insisted. "I need to be there for my daughter." "Of course, Dr. Lam agreed. "Just please let the police do their job first. Wait at the perimeter. Don't go inside." After hanging up, Dr. Lam paced his living room, checking the window every few minutes for signs of police arrival. It felt like hours, though his clock told him only 20 minutes had passed since his call. Finally, he saw the flashing lights of police cruisers turning onto their street, moving slowly without sirens, a tactical approach to avoid alerting Marco. Dr. Lam hurried outside to meet them. 3 police cars parked a short distance from the Alcone house. 6 officers emerged, their movements quiet and professional. Dr. Lam approached the one who appeared to be in charge, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a weathered face and sharp eyes. Dr. Evan Lam, he introduced himself. I made the call. The officer nodded. Detective Morales, you have evidence of sexual abuse. Dr. Lam handed over the photographs. These were given to me by the victim less than an hour ago. She indicated there are more in the house. In a bedroom, she said. Detective Morales examined the photos, his expression hardening. And the girl is pregnant? Yes, 28 weeks. There are serious medical concerns for both her and the baby, intrauterine growth restriction, irregular fetal heartbeat. She needs hospital care immediately. Another officer approached. House is quiet, detective. Lights still on inside. All right, Detective Morales said, handing the photos to another officer who placed them in an evidence bag. Dr. Lam, please wait here. We'll approach the house. The officers moved toward the Alcone residence, positioning themselves strategically around the property. Detective Morales and another officer went to the front door while the others covered potential escape routes, the back door, the side windows, the garage. Dr. Lam watched from the sidewalk, his heart in his throat. Detective Morales knocked firmly on the door. Police, open up. No response. He knocked again, louder this time. Santa Rosa Police Department. Open the door. Still nothing. The officers exchanged glances. Detective Morales spoke into his radio, and moments later, the officers at the back of the house confirmed that they could see movement inside, shadows crossing the living room, but no one approaching the door. After several more attempts, Detective Morales made a decision. We're going in, he announced to his team. Possible endangered minor inside. One officer brought forward a battering ram, a heavy black cylinder with handles. They positioned it against the door. On my count, 3, 2, 1. With 3 solid blows, the door frame splintered and gave way. The officers surged inside. Police, don't move. Dr. Lam remained at the perimeter, straining to see what was happening. Neighbors had begun to emerge from their homes, drawn by the commotion. The couple next door to Marco, an older pair who had watched the earlier confrontation from their window, approached Dr. Lam, their faces pale with concern. What's happening? The woman asked, clutching her robe closed at the neck. Is everything okay? Before Dr. Lam could answer, shouts erupted from inside the house. Then officers rushed upstairs. Then came more shouting, this time from outside the house. They're on the roof, someone yelled. Dr. Lam looked up. His blood froze. Marco was climbing out of an attic window onto the roof above the garage. He was pulling Lucia behind him, his grip tight on her wrist as she struggled to maintain her balance on the steep slope of the shingles. Her red hoodie was stark against the dark sky. The baby bump was visible even from the ground. Stay back, Marco yelled down at the officers below. I'll push her off if you come any closer. We're a family. If I'm going down, we're all going down together. Lucia was crying loud, desperate sobs that carried through the night air. Her free hand was protectively covering her pregnant belly. Please don't, she begged. Please help me. The police below immediately backed off, radioing for additional support. Dr. Lam heard them requesting paramedics and an inflatable landing pad. Marco, Dr. Lam called out, stepping forward despite an officer's warning. Don't do this. The police have the photographs. They know everything. Marco's face contorted with rage, his eyes wild in the dim light. She gave you those pictures, you little bitch? He spat at Lucia. After everything I've done for you, you don't deserve to live. A car screeched to a halt at the edge of the police perimeter. Daniela leapt out, rushing toward the house before an officer intercepted her. That's my daughter, she screamed, fighting against the officer's restraint. Lucia, I'm here. Baby, I'm here. Lucia's tear-streaked face turned toward her mother's voice. Mom, The momentary distraction was enough for Marco to pull Lucia closer to the edge of the roof. Below, officers had managed to deploy a large inflatable safety cushion, positioning it beneath where they stood. They worked quickly, anchors flapping in the night breeze. Detective Morales called through a megaphone.
Marco Halcón.
This is Detective Morales with the Santa Rosa Police Department. Release the girl and surrender yourself. There's nowhere for you to go. Dr. Lam could see officers now positioning themselves at the attic window, ready to apprehend Marco from behind. But Marco saw them too. His head whipped around, eyes wide. "Stay back," he shouted, yanking Lucia closer to the edge. "I'll jump with her if I have to." Daniela broke free from the officer holding her back. "Please, Marco," she screamed. "She's our daughter. Don't hurt her. She's mine."
Marco snarled.
"You never deserved her. You never deserved either of them." In that moment, Dr. Lam realized with horror that Marco was referring to both Lucia and her unborn child as his possessions. His to control, his to destroy. The officers at the attic window began to emerge onto the roof, their movements slow and deliberate. Marco, seeing his escape route blocked and the authorities closing in, made a split-second decision.
No.
Dr. Lam shouted, but it was too late. Marco shoved Lucia off the roof. She fell with a terrified scream that seemed to last forever, her arms flailing, her red hoodie ballooning in the air. She landed on the inflatable safety cushion below with a heavy thud, the cushion absorbing the impact. Officers immediately rushed to her aid, while others surged toward Marco, who attempted to jump in a different direction to escape. He didn't make it far. 2 officers tackled him mid-leap, bringing him down onto the roof surface with enough force to knock the wind from him. They quickly handcuffed him and began the process of bringing him down safely, though with considerably less gentleness than they had shown Lucia. Dr. Lam rushed to where Lucia lay on the safety cushion. Paramedics were already checking her vital signs, their movements quick and efficient. "I'm her physician," Dr. Lam explained, kneeling beside her. "Lucia, can you hear me?" Her eyes fluttered open, tears streaming down her face. "The baby," she whispered. "Is the baby okay?" Dr. Lam placed a gentle hand on her abdomen, feeling for movement. "Let's get you to the hospital to make sure, but I think she's going to be just fine." He looked into Lucia's eyes. "You were very brave, Lucia. Very brave." The night air filled with the flashing lights of police cars and ambulances. Officers led a handcuffed Marco toward a waiting cruiser, his face contorted with rage. As they passed Daniela, who stood anxiously watching the paramedics tend to Lucia, Marco spat in her direction. "This is your fault," he snarled. "You were never a real mother to her." Daniela lunged forward, her composure shattering. "You monster! What you did to our daughter! You're not human!" An officer stepped between them, guiding Daniela back while his colleagues pushed Marco toward the police car. "He should rot in prison forever," Daniela sobbed as Dr. Lam approached her. "I always knew something was wrong with him, but this... You couldn't have known," Dr. Lam said gently. "Predators like Marco are experts at hiding their true nature. That's how they survive." The paramedics had stabilized Lucia on a stretcher and were preparing to load her into the ambulance. Dr. Lam guided Daniela toward them. "She needs you now," he said. "Focus on Lucia, not him." Daniela nodded, wiping tears from her face as she approached the stretcher. When Lucia saw her mother, her eyes filled with fresh tears. "Mom," she whispered, reaching out a trembling hand. "I missed you." Daniela took her daughter's hand, kissing it as tears streamed down her face. "I missed you too, baby. So much. I'm here now, and I'm never leaving you again." Dr. Lam approached the lead paramedic. "I'm her physician. I'd like to accompany you to the hospital if that's all right." The paramedic nodded. "We could use your input on her condition, doctor." As they loaded Lucia into the ambulance, Detective Morales approached Dr. Lam. "Doctor, we'll need to speak with you at the hospital. And you too, ma'am," he added to Daniela. "But for now, go with your daughter. We'll meet you there." Daniela climbed into the ambulance alongside Lucia, never letting go of her daughter's hand. Dr. Lam followed, sitting opposite them as the paramedics continued monitoring Lucia's vital signs. The ambulance sped through the quiet streets of Santa Rosa, siren wailing, lights flashing. Inside, Dr. Lam used his stethoscope to listen to the baby's heartbeat. The heartbeat is still irregular, but it's strong, he told Lucia. The fall doesn't seem to have caused any immediate trauma, but the hospital will do a more thorough examination. He watched as Daniela stroked Lucia's hair, whispering reassurances. Despite the years of separation, despite the trauma and the fear, their bond remained, a testament to the resilience of a mother's love. They arrived at the hospital, where an obstetric emergency team was waiting. Dr. Lam briefly explained the situation to the attending physician, Dr. Elena Vasquez, a specialist in high-risk pregnancies. 28 weeks with IUGR and fetal arrhythmia, he summarized as they wheeled Lucia into an examination room. Also potential trauma from a fall, though she landed on an inflatable safety cushion. The mother is with her, Daniela Rivera. The father is in custody. Dr. Vasquez nodded. We'll take it from here, Dr. Lam. Thank you for your quick action tonight. As the medical team began their work, hooking up monitors, starting 4 lines, running tests, Dr. Lam joined Daniela in the waiting area. Detective Morales arrived shortly after, accompanied by another officer and a woman who introduced herself as Rebecca Miller from Child Protective Services. We need to understand exactly what happened tonight, Detective Morales began. Dr. Lam, please start from the beginning. Dr. Lam recounted the events of the evening, from Lucia's visit to his clinic, to the strange behavior of Marco, to the cryptic comment about the baby kicking, to his discovery that Lucia hadn't gone to the hospital, to the photographs, and finally to the rooftop confrontation. Marco claimed the baby's father was a boyfriend, he explained, but Lucia's comment about the baby kicking when she heard his voice takes on a horrifying new meaning now. Detective Morales nodded grimly. We found a hidden room in the basement, just as you suspected from what Lucia told you. It appeared to be where much of the abuse took place. There were cameras, recording equipment, and other items. Daniela covered her mouth, stifling a sob. His bedroom contained hundreds of photographs of Lucia, the detective continued, some dating back several years. This has been ongoing for a long time. How could this happen? Daniela asked, her voice breaking. How could no one notice? Predators like Marco are skilled at isolation and manipulation, Ms. Miller from CPS explained. They gradually sever their victims' ties to support systems, friends, family, even school. They create a world where the victim has no one to turn to. We'll have a clearer picture once Lucia is able to share her statement. Detective Morales turned to Daniela. Ms. Rivera, we need to understand how Marco gained custody of Lucia. It might help us build a stronger case against him. Daniela wiped her eyes, her expression pained. I'm not proud of what happened. After Marco and I divorced 10 years ago, I was a single mom working nights at a casino. We were struggling financially. She drew in a steadying breath before continuing. I started attending underground poker games, thinking I could stretch my paychecks and give Lucia a better life. But it quickly spiraled into an addiction. I lost money, a lot of money. One night, the house was raided. And that's when the police found out I'd left Lucia, just 7 years old at the time, home alone. Tears streamed down her face, but she kept speaking. Marco seized the opportunity. He portrayed himself as the stable, responsible parent. The court gave him custody, and I was only allowed supervised visitation. Then he moved to Santa Rosa and got a restraining order, claiming I was unstable and a bad influence on Lucia. He systematically isolated her. Ms. Miller nodded. It's a common tactic. The abuser makes the other parent look unfit, then cuts off all contact. Daniela continued, I've spent the last 3 years rebuilding my life, moving to this neighborhood, getting a stable job, renting an apartment with a second bedroom ready for Lucia. I've been saving every penny I could to fight for custody again. But Marco shut down every attempt I made to reach her. Dr. Vasquez emerged from the examination room before anyone could respond. They all turned to her expectantly. Lucia is stable, she reported. The baby's heartbeat remains irregular, but we've started her on medication to help regulate it. We've also begun steroid injections to accelerate fetal lung maturity. That's crucial in cases of IUGR. She's severely malnourished and showing signs of long-term stress and trauma, but physically she should recover. And the baby? Daniela asked. We're monitoring the situation closely, Dr. Vasquez said. The next 48 hours will be critical. The fall doesn't appear to have caused any placental abruption, which is good news, but the pre-existing conditions, the growth restriction and heart irregularities, remain concerning. We'll be doing daily ultrasounds and non-stress tests. Can we see her? Dr. Lam asked. Dr. Vasquez nodded. She's asking for her mother. And you too, Dr. Lam. She says you saved her life. The hospital room was dimly lit, the steady beeping of monitors creating a rhythmic backdrop. Lucia lay propped up on pillows, and 4 in her arm, and fetal monitors strapped across her swollen abdomen. Despite everything she had endured, there was something different about her now. A spark in her eyes that hadn't been there before. The weight of her secret had been lifted. Daniela approached her daughter's bedside, her steps tentative, as if afraid Lucia might disappear. "Lucia," she whispered, gently taking her daughter's hand. "My brave, beautiful girl." Lucia's eyes welled with tears. "Mom," she said, her voice stronger than it had been earlier. "You came back for me. I never stopped trying to come back," Daniela assured her, perching carefully on the edge of the bed. "Your father, he made it impossible, but that's over now. He can never hurt you again." Dr. Lam stood respectfully at the foot of the bed, giving mother and daughter space for their reunion. Detective Morales and Ms. Miller waited near the door, understanding the delicacy of the moment. After a few minutes, Lucia looked up at Dr. Lam. "Thank you," she said simply, "for believing me, for helping us." "You're the brave one, Lucia," Dr. Lam replied. "You found the courage to reach out for help, and that's what saved you and your baby." Detective Morales stepped forward. "Lucia, I know this is difficult, but we need to ask you some questions to help build our case against your father. Would that be okay?" Lucia glanced at her mother, who squeezed her hand reassuringly. "It's your choice, sweetheart. Whatever you decide, I'm right here with you." Lucia nodded slowly. "I want to tell the truth. All of it." "Take your time," Ms. Miller said gently. "And if you need to stop at any point, just say so." Lucia took a deep breath and began to speak, her voice gaining strength as she continued. "There was never any boyfriend." She confirmed what they already suspected. "My father, he's the father of my baby too." She described how Marco had begun abusing her shortly after gaining full custody, how he had systematically isolated her from the outside world, pulling her out of school, forbidding her from using the phone, monitoring her mail. He said he would homeschool me, but there were never any real lessons. Just enough so I could answer basic questions if anyone asked. The abuse had escalated over the years. Whenever anyone came to the house, a repairman, a delivery person, he would lock me in the basement. There's a hidden room there that he built. That's where most of it happened." Her voice trembled, but she continued. Dr. Lam thought of the evidence the police had found in that basement room and felt a wave of nausea. "When I got pregnant," Lucia continued, "he was angry at first. He talked about forcing me to have an abortion, but then he changed his mind. He became protective of the baby. He said it was ours." She shuddered at the memory. "The baby started kicking a few months ago. I noticed she would kick whenever she heard his voice on the phone, in the house, even when he was just talking to himself. It made me sick. I hated that she responded to him." She placed a protective hand over her belly. "But it's not her fault. She's innocent in all this." "Of course she is," Daniela assured her. "I started feeling really sick about 2 weeks ago," Lucia explained. "Bad stomach pains and dizziness. At first he ignored it, but when I could barely get out of bed, he finally decided to take me to a doctor. That's when we went to Dr. Lam's clinic." Detective Morales nodded, taking notes. "The photographs you gave to Dr. Lam, how did you manage to get those?" "My father, he took pictures all the time," she said softly. "He kept them in a box in his closet. I snuck some out while he was in the shower this evening, before we left for the clinic. I knew he would be out of the house to take us there. It's been a really long time since he let me go outside." She paused, gathering her strength. "I didn't know what to do with the pictures or who to trust. But when Dr. Lam came to our house, I thought maybe he could help." "You did exactly the right thing," Dr. Lam assured her. Dr. Vasquez returned to check on Lucia and evaluate the fetal monitoring strips. "The medication seems to be helping with the heart irregularities," she reported. And your own vital signs are stabilizing, Lucia. That's excellent news. What happens now? Lucia asked, looking between the adults in the room. Ms. Miller stepped forward. You'll stay in the hospital until you're medically cleared to leave. After that, we'll need to determine the best living situation for you and your baby. She's coming home with me, Daniela said firmly. I've prepared for this for years. I have a room for her, savings for her care, everything. Ms. Miller nodded. Given the circumstances, that seems like the most appropriate placement. We'll need to conduct a home evaluation, but as long as everything checks out, I don't foresee any issues with Lucia being placed in your care. And what about my father? Lucia asked hesitantly. He's in custody, Detective Morales assured her. Given the evidence we've already collected, the photographs, the hidden room, your testimony, he'll be facing multiple felony charges. Child abuse, sexual assault, incest, child endangerment, and more. He won't be getting out of prison for a very, very long time. Lucia nodded, a mix of emotions crossing her face, relief, sadness, and something like closure. What about the baby? She asked, turning to Dr. Vasquez. Will she be okay? We're doing everything we can, Dr. Vasquez promised. The next few weeks will be crucial. We'll continue the steroid injections to help her lungs develop, monitor her heart closely, and focus on improving your nutrition to give her the best chance possible. I want to keep her, Lucia said quietly, surprising everyone in the room. I know I'm young, but she's not responsible for how she came into this world. I don't want her to suffer for what he did. Daniela squeezed her daughter's hand. We'll raise her together, she promised. You, me, and your daughter. She'll be loved and protected. Always. As the night deepened, Detective Morales and Ms. Miller departed, promising to return the following day. Dr. Vasquez completed her examination and left to check on other patients. Daniela settled into the chair beside Lucia's bed, unwilling to leave her daughter's side even for a moment. Dr. Lam prepared to leave as well, his professional duties fulfilled, but his heart still heavy with the weight of everything he had witnessed. Dr. Lam, Lucia called as he reached the door. He turned back. Thank you for listening, for seeing that something was wrong. He smiled gently. I'm just glad I could help. You did more than help, Daniela said. You saved them both when everyone else looked away. As Dr. Lam drove home in the early hours of the morning, the streets of Santa Rosa quiet and empty, the fog now thicker, he reflected on the events of the night. His decision to follow his instincts, to push past professional boundaries when a child's welfare was at stake, had made all the difference. The neighborhood was silent when he returned. The Alcone house, now a crime scene, stood dark and empty, yellow police tape marking its boundaries. Neighbors would wake to a changed street, a community forced to reckon with the horror that had existed in their midst, unnoticed for years. Dr. Lam entered his home, exhausted but at peace with the choices he had made. In the medical profession, the mandate was clear. First, do no harm. But sometimes doing good required more than just avoiding harm. It required action, courage, and the willingness to see what others missed. As he finally lay down to rest, Dr. Lam thought of Lucia and her unborn daughter, both victims of unspeakable cruelty, both now with a chance at a new beginning. Their road to healing would be long and difficult, but they would not walk it alone. Sometimes, he reflected, as sleep finally claimed him, the most important diagnosis was the one that went beyond medical symptoms, the one that recognized the human suffering beneath the surface, the silent cries for help that came in the form of averted eyes, cryptic words, and brave acts of desperate trust. In the end, it wasn't just medical knowledge that saved lives. It was compassion, attention, and the courage to act when others turned away. If the story moved you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that one person's courage can change everything. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.